Welcome to Heavy Networking, the flagship podcast from the Packet Pushers. On today's episode, we chat with two of the high-powered nerds from Gluware, a vendor-agnostic network automation platform that was one of the very first to market back in the day. I am Ethan Banks, along with Drew Conway Murray. You can follow us via LinkedIn, Blue Sky, and the Packet Pushers community Slack group, and please do. Our guests today are Mike Haugh and Olivier, I'm not going to get you. I don't even want to try, man. Olivier.
I was waiting for it.
Huynh Van.
Huynh Van.
Also known as OHV. Mike's got one of those super early CCIE numbers, 4334, and is Gluware's VP of Product Marketing. And Olivier is the Chief Science Officer and co-founder of Gluware. And he's had his fingers in the code right from the beginning and still does to this day. And we're going to quickly remind you of what Gluware's network automation platform is all about, discuss the very latest Gluware capabilities they've launched to meet you where you're at in your net DevOps practice. We, as Packet Pushers, we've been following Gluware for many years, and we're keen to have this conversation. And the setting here is the four of us are in a room at the AutoCon 3 conference in Prague, and we decided, since we're all here together, hey, let's record this show here and now. So we're in a conference room deep in the bowels of the hotel. And Mike, let me kick the first question over to you in this AutoCon context. We're at the fourth event here, AutoCon 3 of the series hosted by the Network Automation Forum. And you guys have been keeping up with what's been going on at these events here over the last couple of years. From your perspective, what has changed in the network automation conversation over the last couple of years?
One thing I'll say, especially from sitting at AutoCon 0, it was stories of automation heroes, right? I sat in the audience and I listened to people who were trying to do their day job, hitting pain points and saying, I can't keep doing this way, I have to automate. And they spent their nights and weekends to maybe learn Ansible or Python or took a deep dive, and they had some success, some level of success, and turned heads within their organizations. And people said, hey, this automation thing is real, it can help. But then ultimately, they're still kind of fighting for resources. So what's changed? I now kind of say it from the Gluware perspective. Over the last 2 years or so, because we've been advocating for this for 10 years, 10 years of Gluware and 9 years that I've been with the company, we've been advocating automation this whole time, but it hasn't been in the top of the priority list. It's always important, and you kind of assume people are doing it, and we automate in some way, but now when you are a vendor in a conversation, the voice of the automation builder in the what I'll call the committee decision of what path to go, the voice of the automation builder now carries a lot of weight, because most people realize you can't really go to production, you can't operationalize, you can't be efficient unless you're delivering it with automation. So I think the importance of it is really what's changed.
The importance of it's what's when you mentioned resources earlier. I mean, and to me, the resource conversation was twofold. It wasn't just money; it was also headcount, just to be able to devote people that were going to help you build the automation platform that you needed to build. I mean, you think that's changed too, then?
Yeah, I do think that's changed. But what's changed is when the automation heroes go and look at what they needed to build, and they said, okay, I'm going to approach infrastructure as code. I'm going to do templating. I'm going to adopt a language. When they look at a vendor's product, especially in the automation space, they're very skeptical because they view it as a closed solution. There's been a lot of bad experience with automation products that did it in one way, maybe weren't scalable or weren't intelligent or weren't multi-vendor. So there's a lot of, let's say, baggage or bad experience that's been had with automation products. And the view is, if I can go and build it, why would I want to go with a product? And so when they start talking to automation product people like Gluware, like a platform, they're starting to ask fair but tough questions, like, do you integrate with Git repositories? Do you have an IDE, or is your platform open? Can I extend or, expand the feature set, or am I dependent on you to deliver it? And those are tough but fair questions, and those are the type of questions that have changed our product over the past few years.
Well, okay, you're hitting on something here that's interesting, in that some of the conversations that we've had have been, are we going to build it or are we going to buy it? And you're saying, no, it's both. I'm going to buy a platform that I can build on to deliver a customized solution for my business.
Yeah, the buyer build question is a really important one and also a difficult one. And that it really comes from what I was talking about, the automation hero. They may have had legacy tools that were part of their tool set that maybe could tick the box of automation, but really didn't get a lot done. So they had a huge gap and they went and built something, right? And so they are now in that decision, should I build or should I buy? If the buy isn't a very clear return on investment, it's going to get me there a lot faster. And they can, these engineers who are doing the building aren't great at telling the value proposition up to management, right? Because management's saying, oh, well, you've built something that works. Why can't you keep building? Yes, there's some cost there in time, but
mostly time.
The reality of it is that automation hero who spent their nights and weekends in deep diving into Ansible or Python can't continue at that pace and ultimately can't deliver for enterprise-grade automation at a high percentage of automated use cases.
I think that choice of the word automation hero is telling because oftentimes the hero dies at the end, and a hero is not scalable. Just like you said, one person who may have found a specific process that they could use and do over and over again is not the same as an automation framework or an automation strategy.
Sometimes they focus on just one use case because this is what they try to address.
Yeah.
And when this is over, oh, by the way, it's never over because it changes, it needs to be updated. Maybe there's a code upgrade. Maybe there's other use cases that they need to address. And most of the time they even start over. Like they didn't plan for reusable modules or basically there's no framework. They start from scratch when there's a second, third, fourth use case.
Right. And maybe they didn't decide that their job was now trying to manage all of these bits and pieces that they've put together to do this automation.
And there's always a sanity check. And we bring in, you don't want to reinvent the wheel. There are things done and there are things built. You don't have to start from an empty IDE and, first line of Python and I'm going to build a solution. I mean, there's a lot out there. But with the Gluware platform, we deliver things right out of the box that fast forward them to doing the value added work. And so that's generally our value proposition is there's a lot already there and you shouldn't have to start from scratch. You should start from, a mature point and do the value added work. The automation hero concept I really like because especially sitting here at AutoCon, I feel like every one of the automation heroes are essentially Batman, but the tools on the belt, there's not enough belt space, right? And you've had Steinsy on your which I've listened to, and he put together an automation landscape. I don't know how many products are on there, but it's a lot.
It's well over 100, yeah.
And when you sit in some of these that are, we use the term cobbling together open source. It's probably not a fair expression, but you're using, let's say you're using 6 or 7 open source projects. It is a lot of work to install them, to maintain them, to learn them. Like Jinja templating alone, I was just in a 4-hour deep dive. I mean, that goes extremely deep, just the templating piece of it in and of itself. But it doesn't work by itself. You still need to know Python. Mm-hmm. Oh, and then, you want to actually emulate it and test it. Well, you got to spin up Container Lab, and then you got to spin up virtual devices. And we were talking about it. I was an hour into setting up my environment before I ran the first use case, and it's that's the Batman challenge with too many tools on the tool belt. Is a developer colleague of mine kind of said, with too many tools, you never become a master of any of them. And that's the kind of issue we're trying to help. I was thinking about the automation hero. We're trying to give them a superpower. If we give the hero a superpower, they probably have a far better chance of being successful as being the hero.
When I look at those keynotes, the decks that they present, it's like there's a competition in between the keynote speakers of how many, open source libraries they can put on a single slide.
My NASCAR slide, my logo slide's bigger than yours.
Yeah, the previous keynote they were able to put 7, so I can put 8.
Yeah. Okay, you guys represent a network automation platform, right? You got a point of view. I understand that. Everybody understands that, sponsored show and all that. But so let's talk frankly for a minute here. You guys have worked with, at this point, you've been around a long time, talked to a lot of different customers with a lot of different personas and profiles. Does everybody need network automation at this point? And if so, why do you think so? What are the business drivers for it? Or are there some that like, yeah, actually you probably don't need network automation?
At this point, there's very few that don't need network automation. What we're seeing is, even in large enterprises, network teams are small. You're talking about pretty lean teams that have to deliver. And when you have mission critical networks, and in our case, we do very well with very large, highly regulated, insurance and banking and financial and pharmas. Yep. The technology is not their core business, and they ultimately don't have extremely large staff allocated to the network management. So automation is a must. The question ultimately becomes how the roles and responsibilities are divided in the organization, and if they're expecting network operations and network engineering to also deliver automation. And I think that's where, what I'm noticing at this conference, I kind of define it into two personas. Network engineer, who is CLI-centric, protocol-centric, understands vendor components, understands networking. And then there are the automation builder persona that have gone down the Ansible path, have gone down Python, have started playing with Napalm, have Nornir and Jinja 2, and they are capable of scripting, right? And so once you have the personas, then it's really a question of how much are you able to deliver for your enterprise business? And what we're seeing is just because they're so under-resourced, it's still a very low overall percentage that actually is automated.
I would see it as that compounded even more in that you'll have a network operations team, whatever that team looks like. There won't be enough of those people to do the day-to-day work. You need automation. Okay, then you look at the profile of that network operations team. There's one or two on that team, maybe three, depending on your size and scope, that are the deeply skilled network engineers that have the answers and could actually take on a network automation project. And those people are busy already. So what, you're going to saddle them with building a network automation platform as well? It's too big of an ask for most organizations. I mean, the very largest organizations seem to, maybe they'll devote a developer resource to the network operations team to help them build that platform for this reason.
And building is one thing, right? And you can build in an IDE and you can develop and you can get it working, but operationalizing your automation is a whole different realm. And what we see is, again, the automation heroes, they are running it themselves. They're building it and they're running it. It's pretty rare examples where they can build it and hand it over and ops is running it without any more help from them. It's essentially been, operationalized. And I think that's, I would call it the $1 million question or problem, is that, building automation is all fun and it's great, and spinning up these labs and dabbling.
It is fun. I concur. Yes.
And it's rewarding to learn. And I think we're engineers and we always like learning and expanding. And back in my day, my company had to spend $100,000 on a rack of equipment so I could prepare and learn and ultimately achieve a cert.
Yeah, your IE number's so low. I mean, this is what they used to break it on you during the lab, and you had
sure.
ISDN,
It was a 2-day lab,
Apple Talk.
absolutely. The rare that got to prepare for that cert had racks of equipment. Now you could spin up everything virtually. So the barrier to get into these tool sets is almost zero, right? It's just time and energy. But the problem too is if I'm an enterprise, a bank, an insurance company, who am I, if they're building automation, what is the trust level to then roll it out, to press that execute button, right? To run and, again, in just the maturity of it, build it, but you got to operationalize it. If you're lacking that, you're never really going to move the needle, and your poor folks are going to get burnt out. These heroes are going to die, unfortunately.
So what do you mean by operationalize?
Operationalize meaning you have ops people that can then take your playbooks, your run books, your scripts, whatever, again, I'm talking in the context of some form of a homegrown automation, and ops people who did not write it can run it. And there are a few examples of maybe you have some form of an automation framework, or you have Ansible Tower or something, and you're told like, hey, this is the playbook that adds a VLAN, just run it. There's some of that. But in general, what what you're hearing here are the folks that are building are doing the running of it, and they're doing the support of it. There's not really a handoff to ops folks.
So you said you see kind of two personas, the network engineer with the deep engineering networking experience and the automation builder. How do you see Gluware as a product or platform? Is it meant to serve one or the other or both?
And that's, for me, that's really where the story is changing. And again, because the market is changing, we really doubled down years ago on no code. Because we have a suite of applications that are purpose-built for network automation, and you could accomplish automation without having to do the building.
No code like Zapier, if this then that?
Yeah, I mean, basically you go in and we pre-build the vendor integration. There's a lot of automation solutions that, claim they're in automation, but then they're built on top of Ansible, or you got to do things that are integrated part of it that you still are responsible for. The Gluware solution is fully integrated technology stack that has the vendor integration layer as well. So when we do inventory, we can discover an inventory over 55 different network operating systems. That's just like right out of the box. So you get like inventory and drift and audit and configuration management, and these things work without any coding.
The low-hanging fruit kind of things, the table stakes things, the quick wins that if you're trying to sell this to management, it does these things out of the box. We didn't have to build that.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of those things are important because in most cases, we are replacing some legacy. To bring in a new product into a network organization, operation center, you need to usually replace some, right? You need to you need to consolidate. So if they had something that was, an old inventory product, you got to get rid of it. If something was doing just code backups, you got to get rid of that too. So we did offer a consolidation, but where the story is changing is with the network automation voice being automation builder's voice. They want an open product. They want a product that is extensible and integrates. And hey, I know you're doing data modeling, but I want to sync it to a code repo and actually see your data modeling. I don't want it all buried where it's a closed system. People have had such bad experiences with vendor lock-in and closed systems that they don't want to relive that nightmare, we'll call it. So, in our case, we've always had our IDE, our developer side of our product. We even have made it available to customers over the years. But it's at maybe 10% adoption into our customer base because the reality of it was most of our customers can use the functions right out of the box. But the complex use case is really where it drives customization. And the complex use case is being driven in a lot of cases into the complexity of the network. Again, our sweet spot of customers are multi-vendor, many very old networks with a mix of vendors. So your kind of traditional easy automation don't fit well. You need multi-vendor, multi-platform. And so that's where, needing more building, more customization, more API integrations, we really wanted to open up the platform for the developer persona. Well, developer is a slippery slope. I actually don't want to use that word because an automation builder will say, I am not a developer, right? I am not a crook, right? They don't want to be that persona. Now, there are people that are developers. We saw last year PayPal spoke and built a team of 15 people, and they have a development, and they're building their own platform.
Got guys like Jeremy Schulman, MLB, that are kind of have that strong
Jeremy is extremely strong, but MLB is a Gluware customer too, because Jeremy will say, there are things I don't want to build. If I don't have to build it, I don't want to build it. I will buy it. But Jeremy is an innovator, and he's incredibly sharp. And he's doing value-added integrations. Yeah.
Major theme at the AutoCon events is trying to answer a question of why we haven't seen full adoption of network automation yet. And 2 years on, I think we have some answers to that question, but we certainly don't have full adoption of network automation. So from your perspective, what's the answer to that question?
For me, there's 3 dimensions of complexity that are causing what I'll call the network automation chasm, right? The gap that we can't get crossed. Number 1 is the complexity of the network infrastructure. Too many platforms, too many operating systems, too many versions of operating systems, the protocol complexities. Those, just the underlying complexity of the networking layer, make automation hard. This is where I like to bring the example up of like Southwest Airlines in the United States standardizes on the Boeing 737. They have one main plane. They're about operational efficiency, and that's how they serve their customer. But as a result, I won't fly Southwest when I go LA, New York, because I have to change planes. I can't fly Southwest overseas. And so they do one plane and they limit what they offer. I flew Lufthansa here. It was an A380 overseas, a massive plane, like a building 2 levels. And then I flew on a tiny regional jet from Munich here. So Lufthansa is operating all kinds of models of airplanes. And so no networks are Southwest Airlines or Ryanair. No networks have one series of router or switch. Like, it's very, very rare. Maybe, and again, the very rare example of a data center that's one pure vendor, but it's so rare. We, like a unicorn, we really never see it. The complexity of the network. Second dimension, organizational complexity. This is where the fragmented organizations, you have a different data center team, you have a different WAN team, you have different tool sets. That one is just something vendors can't change. The third dimension, and the one we're working to change, is the automation complexity itself. The plethora of tools and everything. There's got to be a better way. It's got to be simpler. And right now, again, attending AutoCon, I see so many ways in which automation can work. I'm not saying any of these don't work or these models. There's so many ways to do things. But how do you make them work for a large enterprise with a very lean team? So those 3 dimensions are where I like to say, like, tier 1 is some scripts and playbooks. Mm-hmm. Tier 2 is fragmented automation. And then there's a big gap until you get to like a tier 3 where you have a platform. And so you either adopt a vendor's platform or like a Gluware platform, or you build a team of developers and you roll your own. And that's a huge undertaking.
Olivier, maybe this is a question for you. One of the things that's been going on within the AutoCon, the NAF ecosystem, is the development of a network automation framework. Have you kept up with any of those conversations? Do you have any thoughts?
I think I don't see any framework. I mean, you start on your own. It's a matter of following those different guidelines that I published by someone who's did this before you, and you're just assembling. I mean, you start any workshop here for the first hour, it's pull, install. And I think that anyone that's just like starting the automation journey, they have to go through that. And I think this is where there's like a huge waste of time. Sometimes it's way above your skill set. And so, when I prototype the Gluware engine, and there's a insider's joke at Gluware, I like to say I'm not a developer, and I'm a network engineer at heart, but I had to learn those development skill set in order to build a.
You're speaking about you yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And out of the code base of hundreds of thousands of lines that I wrote, I'm going to say 80% of the code base is just pure development skill set. How do you database this? How do you MySQL that, and Ajax this? And and only 20% was what I really enjoyed, was just the pure networking business logic. And so we'll talk about this later, about what we're launching and what our IDE can do. But this is what it is all about, is that this is a framework that saves you from this onboarding. Like, you want to be able to have what Mike was describing. You want to be Batman, and at the same time, you want the right belt already equipped with all the right tools ready to, ready. You want to fly, here's the flying tool. When you want to hit the bad guy, here's how you hit the bad guy. And you have the arsenal of all the development tools that you can find out there. Of course, we have, it's not about giving like a cheap way, or a diminished way or reduced, feature sets to the network engineer or the automation hero that's going to try to tackle this. It's try to abstract a lot of the difficulty. And yes, of course we have semantic versioning. Of course we have all those things that developers got. It's just that this is presented in a way that they can focus straight into the networking business logic and not being overwhelmed by it. Oh yeah, I have to put this aside because I have to index this, or I have to. This is what I'm talking. And I have more examples I can give later on data modeling, for instance. Or of course you want to use a data model, but you don't want the development side of the dealing with data modeling.
So I guess that comes down then to this distinction of, are we trying to onboard people onto an existing platform versus making them build everything from scratch? And it sounds like you're obviously coming down on start with a platform, get some quick wins, and then you also can extend the product with some more customization if needed.
Let's be frank, a lot of the app that you have in Gluware's app suites, we've built them internally with our own IDE. So like
it is the same IDE as a customer can
exactly. So you mentioned earlier that, and I didn't say anything, although I was like biting my lip. When you're saying, oh yeah, we do inventory, we do audit, we do OS upgrades, we do that, and then quickly you said, and we send configs. Well, in most of the examples that I see, when there's a workshop and they're trying to the presenters are trying to illustrate an example of sending a configuration. At the end, it's always like either a rip and replace or a merge, right? This is not how we do things. I mean, a CCIE would never just use a configuration in a notepad, create everything that he needs to do, then go onto a device and then replace the config with a new one. No, it's going to SSH and it's going to increment, it's going to look at exactly what's already in the box and say, oh yeah, I need to.
It's going to be a bunch of no statements.
Exactly.
The order's going to be carefully considered and yeah.
Exactly, right? Take an example of we had this customer that has this major core routing change where they had to introduce a new ASN because they wanted to split the routing spaces, and guess what? The management IP was part of the IPs that needed to move to the other, right?
Oh, fun.
Yeah, fun, right? So are you going to take the risk to just I have Notepad++, I'm going to put the new config, and then you're going to, SCP this config or TFTP this config, and then, okay, I'm ready, and then right, and you need to do this on every single core router. You can really do that. So the way that we have a product called config modeling, and you focus on your business logic, you focus on exactly this target configuration that you need, that you want to see in the box. And the delivery, the rendering of the CLI of the device will be performed by the Gluware engine exactly like a CCIE would do. It means that it's going to analyze the configuration of the box. It's going to maybe issue additional statements because some statements needs to be removed. Some statements needs to be shifted. Some blocks needs to be, it's missing, so let's add this. Oh, maybe I need to shut down this before I can, it's never like a rip and replace or a merge is not going to include, an architect a network architect can never really pull the full intent of how it's supposed to be delivered on the box unless you have, the proper tooling to just say this is, you need to go from A to Z, and one step will be more operational, kind of commands, not just pure config commands. I need to shut this down. I need to make sure that my new ASN is up before I can move my, management
You're
loopback.
Talking about you're mentioning the example of significant changes on core routers.
Yes.
you're changing the engine while the plane is flying.
Yes.
To do that, it's possible, but you got to be very careful, and everything's got to happen in a very specific order. And right, back in the day, if I was the CCIE in question that was doing this, I'd write all of it out with logic in between paragraphs. That was like, okay, you're going to apply this stanza, then we're going to check these 3 things. Then we're going to apply this stanza, then we're going to check these 3 things, and so on. And you're talking about being able to programmatically, put that into the network automation platform to do that work for you.
We're talking about complex use cases, Ethan.
What I want to inject in this too is that in that exact example of changing the engine, working on the engine while in flight, this is a actual customer who's using Gluware, but in this case, for changing the routing, they were not using Gluware, and they ultimately caused a multi-hour outage of a transaction where it was a very big deal. And so through pain comes change, right? That's when they went, well, why didn't we automate this change? Right? So this is sometimes frustrating for us, is even when we win an account and they've deployed and they're really happy because they have their inventory dialed, they're monitoring for drift, they're auditing change automation, meaning automation that's actually changing configuration. Sometimes they're still slow to adopt, right? They're still slow to layer in those use cases because they somehow think maybe doing it manually is going to be better because someone's maybe babysitting the process, but you miss a verification command. And I don't know. I know in our case we automated it ultimately in a workflow that does not skip any pre-checks and post-checks and is doing.
It's the things you didn't think of ahead of time, and then you're doing the change in the middle of the night, and you're exhausted, and you've got too many things coming at you, and so you forget a step that really mattered before you went on to the next thing, and all of a sudden, just things are gone south on you. What is going on right now? And your head is in a place where you're very stressed, and people are coming at you. What's happening? Do we need to back the rollout? We got to roll back,
Exactly.
right? What now? Just everyone stop talking to me so I can figure this out.
And what you're saying right now is that you're assuming that the person that wrote the automation is the guy that's going to have to do this all night long.
Yes.
Right?
Almost
So we
always,
were
yeah.
talking earlier, it's like, how do you hand this over to operations? Let's say that
Right.
this is a multi-day, multi-week process to do this. How do you give this to your operations? And most importantly, when your operations have issues, let's say you do this over 3,000 devices, and you have a few outliers that broke. How operations give this back, to the architects to figure out what went wrong?
So the word developer has come up a few times, mostly in the context of I don't want to be but Gluware also offers an IDE. So who is that for? What can you tell us about this IDE? Why would I want it, particularly if there is this aversion to being a developer in the networking community?
The IDE is definitely for network engineers that wants to become automation heroes. I mean, literally, this I really see myself as being one of them because I had to taste, the difficulty of becoming, because we say we don't want to be a developer. It's more learning what you need to understand, what you need to master in order to do this properly. It was hard. It was really hard. I understand the this resistance that network engineers face. They don't want to adopt. It's hard.
I'm a computer science major, right, from university. It's not just about writing code. It's about all the tooling around it in addition. So it's code, and then it's merging in other people's changes to your code, and it's all of that, the system of being a developer that's so different than what it was 40 years ago when it was like, write a script, throw it in a compiler, and it comes out and does the thing. It's so much more that it takes now to become a developer.
Is there something about your IDE that if I am going down this path of being an automation creator that I would choose it over any of the other IDEs I could use?
What I like to describe our IDE is it's a low-code approach, and it's a all-in-one. So we've taken a well-known IDE platform called Eclipse, which is, again, it's well-known, probably not as popular as VS Code these days, but we've taken the Eclipse framework, which has a bunch of extensions and things in it, and ultimately it has libraries. We've added our own libraries in, and we've extended it and made it our own. But what you get when you use the Gluware Lab IDE is you have two main constructs you're working with. You have JSON-based JTypes, that's data modeling, and you have JavaScript-based business logic. So in general, all you're doing is some pretty lightweight JSON and JavaScript, but you have an underlying capability that's all built in. There's no deciding, well, what library am I going to use to connect via API? Well, what library via SSH? What library am I, what schema, what templating? It's all already in the environment. So because it's all in one and you can kind of get right to what you're trying to do with it, that's really the difference. And then the piece of operationalizing it, just to finish that point, is that you rapidly build or prototype. You have the ability to test it right within it. So the Gluware orchestration engine is integrated as part of the library. So you can test the orchestration engine. You can even have devices that you connect to and test it end to end. So the IDE is an all-in-one to test whatever you're adding on or developing within the Gluware suite. And then right from it, you can push it to the app suite where it is then operationalized. So that's, again, what I was trying to get to is you want to have development of customization, integration, custom API calls, custom forms and validation, but ultimately it's got to go into a place where you're consuming it, an operations person can consume it and run it on a day-to-day basis.
And by the way, it's bidirectional, right? It means that once this is sent to operations, and if operations has a problem, they have ways to send everything that happens back to whoever wrote that piece of code, that piece of automation, and then the IDE will say, this is what happened, and you've got access to everything, the timing, how much time it took for the box to respond, that it was slow at that point, and
So the value of that is what happens when automation goes wrong. And when you are cobbling together open source and you have multiple layers and you're like, did I mess up the template? Did I mess up the plugin? It's very difficult to troubleshoot. In the Gluware side, because it's a fully integrated stack, all the way down to the connection and the CLI handling or the API call, when anything goes wrong, you have very, very deep level of logging. And as Olivier mentioned, you can download the support bundle and drop it right back into lab and replay the car crash, so to speak. You can see exactly what happened and click on an error log. And you can tell, did the device not like the command? Maybe there was a bug or something funny with the vendor itself, like the network vendor, or was it a code problem? But then you can quickly fix that and get it republished. And so being able to support it and maintain it is a critical component.
And is this IDE meant to customize, Gluware and make it do things that maybe you all hadn't thought about, or can I use it to write automations that incorporate Gluware and third-party components?
I'd say both. Let's say that, so we have RPA, which is network RPA that allows you to create your own, business processes, where you want to operationalize like a change and it needs to interact with ServiceNow, and you want to make sure that it's approved before the change is, happening, that you want to, do post-check, pre-check, post-check before doing anything. And it doesn't matter. It could be an OS management operation. It could be a provisioning of a new feature, etc. It could be any of that. We provide like a list of all those RPA tasks that you drag and drop, and you just organize your business process. What if you're on your own? What if there's one task, and that task is for you to just go and fish that data somewhere that you need in one of your APIs that's available to you?
The customer cert renewal project was a great example, which is, they had to renew certs on like 3,000 routers. Well, they wanted to build a full process in network RPA. Well, the piece that we didn't have out of the box is to go talk to the cert authority, get the new cert, pull it down. Now, we have the ability to push it, and we have configuration management and all this stuff, but in a very lightweight way, we developed the task to go and interface with the cert authority, get the cert, and then integrate it. And then this, again, was developed over days, proof of concept or tested over weeks. And then within a few weeks, they updated all 3,000 devices in their network, in terms of cert renewal. So it's lightweight in integrations as well to kind of quickly get you to your complex use case.
But the IDE isn't, Well, I guess this is the question. I'm not developing Python in the Gluware IDE. This is a domain-specific IDE for the world of Gluware.
So like Mike was saying earlier, you've got the data modeling part that we call JTypes, and we've got our scripting construct that we call, JNIB. J stands for JavaScript. I think JSON marries better with JavaScript than Python, but that's not the reason why we chose, JavaScript. The JType, this is our own data modeling. This is our own DSL. It's based on JSON, and we have our own set of annotations that allows you to just build whatever data model you want. And it can be as simple as just like, stacking just set of primitives up to completely hierarchical, data models with references and all the power that you would expect to be available in data modeling. And when it comes to JNIB, we try to reduce the feature set of JavaScript to the bare minimum. The only thing you need is literally if then else, and making and like a loop. That's it.
Okay.
Remember, we don't want to scare, the network engineer. If you start like adding those things and then include this and
we're not scared. We're just busy.
That and that, yes,
Too busy. That's the problem. We're always too busy.
Okay, so we need to talk about Gluware Labs here. We haven't actually got to your product announcement that we definitely want to cover here. But just backing up for a moment, I can use Gluware as a no-code platform. I can use Gluware via the IDE as I think it's fair to describe as a low-code platform and develop actual applications that are specific to my environment and, as you were putting it, operationalize them, send them out into the world to be consumed by network operations people to get work done. Here at AutoCon 3, you're announcing Gluware Labs. What is this all about?
Gluware Labs is more of a program than it is a product. And the main components of Gluware Labs are, one is free Gluware software, which is getting our product in the hands of people who want to play with it.
Wait, you said free, right?
Free.
Did I hear that? Okay, free software. Okay,
free software.
Keep going.
And again, in our view, it's the idea to reduce friction, right? If you hear all these great things on the podcast and go, well, I got to see it with my own eyes, you need to get your hands on it. And you don't necessarily want to go talk to a salesperson or commit to a proof of concept.
It's not necessarily I might not. I don't want to talk to a salesperson, Mike.
I know. A lot of people feel that way, especially network engineers. They want to play with it. So free software, what's available today is the Gluware App Suite, which is the no-code piece. Fully available, you just to join our community. So we're launching a community as part of the Gluware Labs Builder program. Join the community. We have support on Discord, which is the community's kind of hosted there. Mm-hmm. But with that joining of the community, you get access to our free software. We issue 20 device license, meaning you can play with it with a decent little network.
Okay, so that was my next question.
Yeah.
What's the catch? What is the catch?
Capped,
Is 20
right.
devices.
20 devices, but it is a 1-year term that's renewable. So originally we were thinking, shorter term, like 30-day and stuff. But back to the I don't have time thing, we need to enable engineers and builders to have time to do these things because they're going to go off on the side and basically say, do I like this product or not? And then they will bring it into their org and be ready to stand up and say, I want to use it. So number one is free software. It starts with the App Suite. We have a fast follow coming out in late 2Q, early Q3. That will be the IDE as well. Gluware Lab is our IDE. Gluware,
so June, July 2025 timeframe. Yeah, okay.
We have the IDE already available, but we have a new version coming out, which of course makes it much better for more mass consumption. We roll to the newest version of Eclipse. It has a lot of benefits in it, like auto-updating the required Java libraries, and it also now, that version supports running on Mac OS. So before you had to run on Windows or Linux. So
latest version
Windows
of
anyway.
Latest version of our Copilot as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so that in terms of kind of filling out, so free software, starting with the App Suite and then Gluware Labs, kind of a fast follow. Second is training. We have a full course available on our website right now, gluware.com/newbie-2ninja, what dashes or whatever. But search, you can find it on gluware.com.
Ninja.
The Newbie to Ninja program.
Yeah.
Because we want to, in our workshop, in the very first hands-on lab, there was no install anything. It was let's run, discovery. Let's get right into it. And people will have that experience. They'll get our app suite, they can watch our video tutorials and follow right along and learn our entire app suite in 11 modules. So the video training. The third piece, and maybe the most interesting piece for the NAF audience, is builder tools. So builder tools, of course, is our IDE itself. But other builder tools that we have coming out include extensions to VS Code. We don't want to have to force you to use our IDE. If we're talking about first starting with JTypes, which are, again, are JSON-based data modeling. If you want to do the data modeling in VS Code, you could do it there and then push it into a repo and then...
The plugin or something?
Plugin, extensions.
Okay. Yeah.
It's VS Code extensions.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's there. Also, we have refreshed our Ansible Collection, which is 2 plugins and 4 modules. So this is, if I'm an Ansible user or person and I want Ansible to talk to Gluware, we have had some really great conversations with Ansible users on, hey, you know, Ansible's getting me this far, but it's not great in these areas, right? It's not great at complex. It's not great at drift and audit. So like, how can we integrate these things? I don't want to manually build my inventory file. So Gluware will dynamically build your inventory file. You can, you can integrate like NetBox does too. But like, again, kind of plugging into an ecosystem where we just work nicely with the tools that are there. So those are a bunch of the pieces that are part of Gluware Labs. Other pieces to mention, in the product line, in the no-code app suite, we introduced an operational copilot. This is the Gen AI helper. Like,
was this the copilot Olivier mentioned just a minute ago?
Well, there's 2 copilots.
Okay.
One is in the no-code app suite. It's up on the right. You click on it and say, you know, how do I reference a custom field in this? And it tells you how to do things. So that's kind of the helper using the product. It's basically a ChatGPT front end for our help and all our docs, and it helps move you along. People like that, you know, that's kind of, let's say, standard these days.
Yeah.
Become table stakes,
Yeah, it's become table stakes for products that are being kept up, right? A lot of products. The second piece of the AI story is our developer copilot, which we just showed at the AutoCon conference here. So when you're in Gluware Lab, and people are a little bit apprehensive of learning, well, Gluware's flavor of JSON and Gluware's flavor of, you know, using JavaScript. Now you'll have a copilot that you can say, build me a data model that has these fields and is doing form, you know, you describe it in text and it will generate it for you. So the AI copilot is really great. We have use cases already where we're seeing like a 10x improvement. Like we're already fast anyway. When you compare Gluware to, again, the Python, we're already 10x faster. Now you layer on AI copilot.
Is this a custom copilot? And I want to qualify that because I've messed around with some of this vibe coding. And it's okay. It gives you like a starting point,
Right.
but it's buggy and it kind of sucks. And then you got to fix it and go, oh, you tell it, this doesn't work. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. Here's the fix for you. And then that doesn't work either,
Right.
and all that.
We'll go through growing pains, but the truth is that we have trained it from RAG. You know, we have provided it a lot of examples.
Okay.
And provided it a lot of question answer. So there is enough in there. Again, it's early availability. And we'll probably be a little cautious to label something as GA and gold-plated or whatnot. Yeah. It's going to go through its maturity, and that's why even on the operational copilot, early on we had it like you could run an audit, you could run an upgrade right from the copilot because it's just interfacing with our API and making something happen. But it wasn't 100%, and so because in terms of making change. So that's why the operational copilot kind of guardrails on. It tells you what to do. It doesn't do it for you yet. In the dev world, it'll generate it, and then you can test it. And if it doesn't work, you can say, hey, that model you built didn't render correctly or whatever, and it'll iterate. So it's not going to be perfect out of the gate.
You said RAG, though, too, meaning you've custom trained it on your own stuff, which is going to take it a lot further than I think some of what you're seeing that's generally available. And different of these tools are better than others, all depending on how they've been trained. So just saying you've done augmentation of your own domain knowledge is a big deal.
We fill your vector store with as much examples that we know, and this is like an iterative process. As we're bumping into use cases, then we add, and this is how it's getting better.
Am I getting either of these copilots with that free software?
Yes. Yes, with the free software, you have to enable it, basically opt in because it's under EA. But you do get the operational copilot. The dev copilot, I think final decisions are being made about that because there is an element of cost to it. So I don't.
On your own side, when a Gluware user issues something to the copilot, and then there's back-end processing, you guys got to pay for it.
Yeah, we're running it, hosting it essentially. It's using our API call to on the back-end side, yes. Okay. But what I want to just finish saying was that with the Gluware IDE and the Dev Copilot, as part of the Gluware Labs Builder program, we have a whole series of training modules and videos coming out around that as well. So we really need to be able to get people up to speed without having to handhold them. We need them to be self-sufficient, to become proficient quickly.
And we want to be self-sufficient and proficient in our own time, as opposed to a formalized proof of concept where it's like, okay, there's a timeline on this. I'm interacting with people from Gluware. I got this pressure, and all of a sudden this other thing I didn't know was coming at me is coming at me. I don't have time to get all of this done. Now it's, here's all the tools. Here's the training. It's very consumable. Download the thing. You've got the catch is a 20 device limit. That's all you can. But you can fully figure this thing out. And there's the Discord channel, so you can hop in if you got questions and get help from people that are there. Get help. Olivier is he's just waiting for my questions in Discord, isn't he?
He's looking at his phone right now.
It's in front of me. I'm watching.
And I can do everything with that 20 license free version that I could do with the paid version, like inventory.
It is the whole app suite except topology. We had some decision around that. Our topology generation, we'll just, for now, that's omitted. But other than that, you get inventory drift, audit, config modeling, dashboard, data explorer, network RPA, yes.
OS upgrade.
OS upgrade, yes.
Okay.
And what I'm hoping is that, once you have, the app suites and the IDE, then you just realize that, you have the solution for building your own complex use cases. Because, let's be clear, every time that we see a workshop or something, it's only, I'm going to, update my NTP settings, my SNMP, yeah, exactly.
Multi-vendor EVPN.
Sure, yes. So, literally took a week and only 2,000 lines of code to build a full-blown EVP at VXLAN, solution where you fully control your underlay, your control plane and data plane overlays with, IPAM integration and SVIs, difference on every leaf, control of your VRFs, like the full NAN yard. Yes, you can do that.
Yeah, well, which is fascinating anyway because of EVPN VXLAN interoperability challenges between vendors. So I don't know, are you handling that too?
Right now, what we tried with those with the solution so far is like six OSs that we support, like from leaf routing or the Juniper way,
with Cisco, Juniper, Sonic, maybe.
We added Sonic and Sonic Community and Dell Enterprise Sonic interplatform recently. That's not yet in the config management side yet, but we have it on the inventory drift audit, and we'll be improving that. So yeah, Sonic's it's one of the newest vendors we just added.
Okay, I added the most ridiculous example I could think of, and you're like, oh yeah, it took us a week. Okay. But case in point, it's not like, you don't have to think small here. It is possible to build as complex a solution as you're likely to need within your environment. It is possible.
We have a customer right now using this this solution for deploying I'm not sure how this number 180 stacks as leads with 6 members in a whole building. And it's, fully zero touch.
And again, the whole point here, operationalization.
Yeah.
So that
operationalization,
which sort of makes me think like instead of one person having to be the hero, if you actually can successfully operationalize this, then everybody can be a hero.
That's right. You need to, getting back to Southwest Airlines, you got to democratize automation, right? You got to make it available to the staff that is not doing the writing of it. They're just going to be doing the running of it.
Every provisioning of like those 180 stacks that I just talked about, that generates 30,000 lines of log. And so when something happens, Mike talked about the bundle. We call this the provisioning bundle, which is basically exactly what happened. Then it includes everything you need to know to figure out what went wrong. And we're not talking about, we're talking about launching a rocket, right? Like, means you can't go back to engineering and say, yeah, I had a problem. Is it possible to relaunch because I want to see what went wrong, why it blew up? No, it's done. You try to launch, it failed, and you want to know exactly what happens. So we record everything, absolutely everything. And the cherry on top of the cake, and no other languages can do that. If you click on any line of any line of the log output, it takes you straight to the line of code that executed that line. Doesn't exist on any other languages.
Okay, so a lot of discussion about Gluware, and what's interesting about this, I've known Jeff and you guys for a lot of years now, a long, long time, going back to what Gluware's roots were when it was not this, and what it's turned into as network automation has evolved. And to look at it now, there's an IDE, there's multiple approaches, there's a lot of things it does out of the box there, and so on. To see what the ecosystem is that has evolved around Gluware has been pretty fascinating, to the point now of a community edition. And so maybe that's the right place to start is for folks that are out there is that. Go to the Gluware Community Edition if you're looking for a platform, a network automation platform, because you don't want to build it all yourself, but you're interested in some kind of a commercial solution. This is a good way to evaluate that. So Mike, if people want to download the Community Edition and get started with Gluware Labs, like you were talking about, where do they go?
Yeah, Gluware.com, and request or join the community. And through that, there's a form to request the Community Edition software. We enable them with the license, and they're off and running.
Off and running, they got a year, and it's renewable, and and so on.
Yeah, and for the NAF community, that again, so much has been changing over the last 2 years. We now tick a lot of boxes that they require. We integrate with Get. We're built in to integrate with ServiceNow. We have out-of-the-box NetBox integration. We have the template builder. We have all these pieces that the Automation Hero was asking for, so they're going to find it.
All right. So Gluware.com, that's Gluware, Gluware.com. Mike, are you available on like LinkedIn or something?
I'm on LinkedIn, absolutely. I'm also on the Discord channel. If you join our Gluware community, please connect with me there.
That's Mike Haugh, and his last name is spelled H-A-U-G-H.
That's right.
That's right. Okay, which is not How.
It's like some Irish heritage confusion. Yeah.
And then Olivier, what about you? Are you too busy coding and coming up with new ideas for the next version of Gluware, or are you out there too?
They let me out of my cage from time to time. But no, of course I'm available on LinkedIn, and I'm also watching, like you were saying earlier, I'm watching the Discord channel as well.
Excellent.
Waiting for your messages.
Very good. And I'm Ethan Banks with Drew Conremer. You can find us on LinkedIn as well, and many of you have and keep doing so. We're happy to connect with you there, and thank you for listening to Heavy Networking today. And our thanks to Gluware for sponsoring today's episodes. Our sponsors make it possible for Packet Pushers to bring you all the podcasts, videos, newsletters, and even written articles. Remember those? That help you keep up with networking, cloud security, and more. And if you ping Mike, Olivier, or anybody at Gluware, would you let them know that you heard about them on Packet Pushers? That would really help us out a lot. Please do all the things. Buy some merch at store.packetpushers.net. Like, comment, and subscribe. Share with your friends and colleagues. You can also send us a message at packetpushers.net/follow-up, and the little automation there, we'll put it into our Slack channel, and we'll see it, and we'll respond to you. You can join the Packet Pushers community Slack group, and lots of channels and discussions going on in there. There's people joining every day, and a lot of fantastic conversations going on. If you haven't been in that Slack group for a while, we've added a whole bunch of channels that allow you to scope your conversation. You want to talk about firewalls? We got a channel for that, etc. And you can follow Drew and I on LinkedIn, and of course, Packet Pushers itself. Again, I've been Ethan along with Drew. Last but not least, remember that too much networking would never be enough.